Little Red Riding Hood. Battle with the Wolf Bot. Once upon a time, there was a dear little girl who was loved by every one who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother, and there was nothing that she would not have given to the child. Once she gave her a little cap of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else, so she was always called Little Red Riding Hood. She lives with her mother in a small house very, very far beyond everyone's imagination. The older she gets, the more cold and decisive she becomes. She has traveled too many places on earth. And she is a brave warrior, a warrior with extraordinary health and agility. She once went to the Valley of Death to confront a giant white eagle and saved many people from its attack. She also destroyed a giant crocodile as big as a building, with sharp teeth and a tail full of spikes. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Riding Hood, here is a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is ill and weak, and they will do her good. Set out before it gets hot, and when you are going, walk nicely and quietly. And do not run off the path, or you may fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. And when you go into her room, don't forget to say good morning, and don't peep into every corner before you do it." "I will take great care," said Little Red Riding Hood to her mother, and gave her hand on it. She said good-bye to her mother and went on her way. Little did she know that she was about to go through an extremely dangerous journey. She went through many places, through wet swamps and old bridges hanging on cliffs. On the way, she walked and got acquainted and talked to many animals. She feeds them and cuddles them. The grandmother lived out in the wood, half a league from the village, and just as Little Red Riding Hood entered the wood, a wolf met her. Little Red Riding Hood did not know what a wicked creature he was, and was not at all afraid of him. "Good day, Little Red Riding Hood," said he.
"Thank you kindly, Wolf."
"Whither away so early, Little Red Riding Hood?"
"To my grandmother's."
"Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?"
"A good quarter of a league farther on in the wood. Her house stands under the 3 large oak trees. The nut trees are just below. You surely must know it."
"What have you got in your apron?"
"Cake and wine. Yesterday was baking day, so poor sick grandmother is to have something good to make her stronger."
The wolf thought to himself,
"What a tender young creature. What a nice plump mouthful. She will be better to eat than the old woman. I must act craftily so as to catch both."
So he walked for a short time by the side of Little Red Riding Hood, and then he said, "See, Little Red Riding Hood, how pretty the flowers are about here. Why do you not look round? I believe, too, that you do not hear how sweetly the little birds are singing. You walk gravely along as if you were going to school, while everything else out here in the wood is merry." Little Red Riding Hood raised her eyes and when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and there through the trees, and pretty flowers growing everywhere, she thought, suppose I'd take grandmother one. And so she ran from the path into the wood to look for flowers, and whenever she had picked one, she fancied that she saw a still prettier one farther on, and ran after it, and so got deeper and deep. Meanwhile the Wolf ran straight into the forest, making his way to grandmother's house with a dark plot. In the end, it was easy to find the house. The Wolf walked around observing, and he looked through the door and saw grandmother lying there.
"Who is there?"
Little Red Riding Hood,
replied the Wolf.
she is bringing cake and wine. Open the door.
"Lift the latch."
Called out the grandmother.
"I am too weak and cannot get up."
The Wolf lifted the latch, the door sprang open. He went inside the house, sat next to the grandmother and sniffed. The grandmother was extremely scared. She asked him not to eat her. But without saying a word he went straight to the grandmother's bed and devoured her. Then he put on her clothes, dressed himself in her cap, laid himself in bed, and drew the curtains. When the Wolf had appeased his appetite, he lay down in the bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very loud. A huntsman was just passing the house, and thought to himself, how the old woman is snoring. I must just see if she wants anything. So he went into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw that the Wolf was lying in it.
"Do I find you here, you old sinner?"
said he.
"I have long sought you."
But the Wolf was not afraid. It got up and attacked the hunter. The hunter did not expect the Wolf to be so strong and ferocious. After a fierce fight, the hunter could not win against the Wolf. He fell and was swallowed by the Wolf. When the Wolf had appeased his appetite, he lay down again in the bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very loud. Little Red Riding Hood, however, had been running about picking flowers, and when she had gathered so many that she could carry no more, she remembered her grandmother and set out on the way to her. She was surprised to find the cottage door standing open, and when she went into the room, she had such a strange feeling that she said to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today, and at other times I like being with grandmother so much." She called out,
"Good morning,"
but received no answer. So she went to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay her grandmother with her cap pulled far over her face and looking very strange.
"Oh, grandmother,"
she said,
"what big ears you have."
the better to hear you with, my child,
was the reply.
"But, grandmother, what big eyes you have."
She said,
the better to see you with, my dear.
"But, grandmother, what large hands you have."
The better to hug you with.
"Oh, but, grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have."
The better to eat you with.
And scarcely had the Wolf said this, than with one bound he was out of bed and tried to swallow up Little Red Riding Hood. But the Wolf did not know that she was a warrior and was never afraid. She drew her sword and rushed to fight the Wolf. The battle was endless and increasingly fierce, but gradually, with her confidence and courage, she scared the Wolf. She finally defeated the Wolf. It occurred to her that the Wolf might have devoured her grandmother, and that she might still be saved. So she did not fire, but took a pair of scissors and began to cut open the stomach of the sleeping Wolf. When she had made to snips, she saw the grandmother shining, and then she made to snips more, and the grandmother crying,
"Ah, how frightened I have been! How dark it was inside the wolf!"
And after that the hunter came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Then all three were delighted. The huntsman drew off the wolf's skin and went home with it. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine which Little Red Riding Hood had brought. After that, Little Red Riding Hood continued her journey to explore new lands, fight vicious animals, and rescue people. It is a challenging but also very interesting journey. Are you prepared for your challenge?